What we see going on in Argentina is something that has the capacity to light the cultural powder keg of the world, and with it, we see that the people of Argentina have their revolutionary spirit activated to a degree that the libertarians of the United States could only hope to see happen here. This is something that I find so fascinating. Javier Milei, the Libertarian Anarcho-Capitalist candidate running for president in Argentina, has ginned up the populace to such a degree to understand the nature and threat of government, activating the young people and that of the generations to come with a culture and mindset of understanding the nature of socialism and the threat that it holds when it comes to top-down regulation through all of the substructures that entail how we operate in civil society. With it, we see we are going to have a major shift going on within this country. Let's go ahead and jump into the nefarious nature of what's going on with Javier Milei now being sued just days before the election, as well as all of the information surrounding it and people's perspective here in America, as well as someone like Max Kaiser allowing us to have information explained to us so we can have information on what was going on with the monetary collapse that led to the problems in Argentina that activated so many people to being someone who is willing to follow the ideals of Javier Milei and subject themselves to the fundamentals of libertarianism. Let's go ahead and jump in. Here we have a photo from Javier Milei's final campaign rally before the first round of voting this weekend, and what we see is something that will set the precedent for the rest of this video. This is the activation of the younger generation to a degree that is unbelievable. On a political scale, if the United States was able to captivate the younger generation with the metrics of the beauty of libertarianism and freedom and the ideals of what it means to strive for individual liberty for everyone, rather than subjecting themselves to the tyranny of collectivism and that of the ideals of socialism as we've been propagandized into doing so, but also this mindset that so many people have inculcated with the adoration of socialism comes with the fact that they are living in a despotically destroyed economy that they believe is the product of capitalism. And with it, we see that it's really nothing more than cronyism that has caused the destruction of the economy within the United States and many other countries abroad, that has caused the shifting mindset that has pushed so many of the young people towards socialism. This only comes from the process of many people being economically illiterate, but with time, we can change that. And with the process of activating the younger generation through understanding the threat of what politics is and the nature of the state being the true enemy, much like how Javier Milei has activated the lions within Argentina, we see that it is possible to defy the odds and counter the narratives and overcome the bullshit when it comes to the political opposition that is trying to stop the free people of the world from being able to be just that, free. We see from Austin Peterson here, he says, "Please, for all that is good in this world, let Argentina be free." Look at this response. Look at this energy. This is not something that you could quell and turn off with the flick of a switch. This is something that will last for generations, and with it, it will inspire thousands and hopefully millions. We already see that Tucker Carlson's interview with Javier Milei is one of the most popular videos on the entirety of Twitter. It is the most viewed piece of media on all of Twitter with roughly 425 million views. It is genuinely incredible. I thought the interview with Donald Trump was going to be the one that took the cake and was going to be the most viewed interview on the entirety of the platform. But what do we see? It's the beauty of libertarianism and the fundamental of these ideals, that understanding the nature of the state as the threat that is the enemy to a free society is the one thing that truly draws eyes. Let's go ahead and continue on with what we see from Being Libertarian. It says, "Libertarian presidential candidate in Argentina, Milei, has started a movement that will last generations." This is absolutely true. And here we see it's this video of this young boy. And he's just saying thank you. I don't expect this boy to understand the economic intricacies of Argentina. But what I do expect is that he's heard his parents talk about how much hope this man gives him. And with it, it's endowed him. And what that means is this is a generation of people who will no longer be buying the narratives because they see hope in a man who is telling them that defiance of the narrative from the state is how we will truly come to power. And we see Javier Milei embracing the young boy, being kind and genuinely looking like he really cares about the future of this young man. The one thing that I find so incredibly fascinating about this is when you see him interact with many of the people that are his supporters, it is in such a personable way that he looks so detached from so much of the political class that we see when they interact with so many different people across the political spectrum. So, here we see from Maggie, and this is Liberty Anders on Twitter. She says, a prosecutor in Argentina has filed criminal charges against Javier Milei just days before the election for inciting public fear about the value of the peso. Perhaps the Argentine government should be charged with theft or for causing hyperinflation through money printing. And that's absolutely true. If they wanted to complain about the fact that, well, you're going to be devaluing the Argentine peso, maybe you should have pushed economic policies that weren't going to absolutely destroy the economy by devaluing the Argentine peso in itself and making hyperinflation gin up to that of roughly 130%, which has annihilated people's capacity to move upward through the economy in this country. Now on to Max Keiser, who is a Bitcoin fanatic, and Max Keiser was ahead of the curve when it came to Bitcoin. If you were listening to Max 10 years ago, then you are sitting quite pretty currently. Let's go ahead and jump into this, and this is a video of someone explaining to Max Keiser the history of disaster and what brought on the nature of the currency collapse in Argentina. Let's go ahead and jump into this video.
Okay, I'm with my friend Ariel Aguilar, and he's going to give us a little condensed history of Argentinian monetary history. Hit it.
Sure, well, Argentina has been a perpetual monetary disaster. We've taken out 13 zeros out of all the currencies. And in the 19th century, we had like a random assortment of currencies until we made the first national one in 1881, which was called Peso Moneda Nacional. For a few years, it had gold backing, but whenever there was a crisis, they took out the gold backing. And in 1935, they put the central bank, the first central bank, and that's when the gold backing ended.
All right, Max, we got to speed it up.
This one lasted until 1970, and then they took out 2 zeros, so 100 of these became one of these, peso ley. This one lasted 13 years, and it financed the Falkland Wars.
The Falkland Wars, of course.
Yeah, and they took out 4 zeros because this one got up to 1 million pesos note. So then 10,000 became 1 peso argentino, and this one only lasted for 2 years. It went from 83 to 85. Then they made the Austral plan, and the Austral was worth more than $1 when it was born. It was 83 cents of an Austral, bought you $1. In 89 there was a hyperinflation, so the president had to leave office in advance, and the new president continued with inflation, but he got a minister of economy that was like Chicago boy or whatever, and he proposed to do convertibility. So whenever the exchange rate between the Austral and the dollar went to 10,000, this would kick in, right? And this is called peso convertible. It's like a tether. It's a $1 had to be in the central bank in order to print one of these. So in these periods, the Argentine government there was no need to raise taxes, to collect taxes, because whenever the government got the taxes, it was worthless. So here they raised taxes, they got into debt with the IMF, and eventually when there was a recession, it collapsed.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Listen, for more details, what's your Twitter handle?
It's at Ariel Aguilar.
Okay, this guy's got all the dope of what's happening in Argentina, how the election's going to unfold. It's happening this Sunday. He's got a billfold full of money all over the world. He's an expert in all of this. Follow him on Twitter, and you will find out. What do you got there?
Now I got one of the highest denomination bills in Argentina, and now 1,000 pesos is $1.
Incredible. All right, thanks. Bye.
Is that not incredibly fascinating? He talks about the fact of right when they left the gold standard, when there was a major crisis that arose, they abandoned it, and with it, they created a central bank. They destroyed their currency. It started the process of their inflation that they're now suffering, and with it, they became slaves to the IMF. It sounds so familiar. Alrighty, on to this from ABC News. Prosecutor files case against Argentina's frontrunner Javier Milei days before presidential election. Well. Someone who's anti-establishment and comes off the fact of pushing rhetoric that completely goes against the established ethos, and with it, the media and the corporate press and many of the people within the upper echelons of the government turn on him to completely demonize this person, and in the process act like they are the enemy and completely lambast all of their followers. Where have I seen this story before? A prosecutor has launched a criminal case against Argentina's frontrunner in this month's presidential elections, accusing Javier Milei of deliberately causing a sharp drop in the Argentine currency when he encouraged citizens to not save in pesos. And as I've already stated, well, the fact is, if you wanted to go ahead and sue someone for destroying the Argentine peso and telling people to not believe in it, maybe you should prosecute yourselves for annihilating the currency and causing the hyperinflation that has completely destroyed people's belief in your currency. Because that is what fiat currency is. It is built on the power of belief. Alrighty, moving on, we go to CNN. Argentinian far-right outsider Javier Milei post-shock win in primary election. Every single person that stands outside of the establishment narrative has to be too far right or too far left to actually listen to, but in the end it doesn't actually matter. As long as you are outside the establishment perspective and you are outside of that, of the Overton window, that is the allowable spectrum of thought, well, what do you have? You are going to be demonized. It doesn't matter if you are a far left socialist or you are a far right economic wizard, and by that I mean someone who is just an anarcho-capitalist who understands that government regulation in any system, in any market, is going to always lead to negative outcomes. Here's the thing. We see that it doesn't matter if you're far right, quote unquote, or far left, quote unquote, as long as you are outside that of the establishment perspective and you are challenging the narratives on either side, you will always be lambasted. Now, we go ahead and jump into another, and what we see is Javier Milei, the chainsaw candidate, challenging Argentina's left and right. And this is what's so fantastic. I'll at least give this article credit from CNN. It's talking about how he's challenging both the left and the right because his movement isn't about pushing anything, whether being progressive or whether being conservative, is simply about the nature of the threat of the state and what it means to the encroachment of people's freedoms and how they will consistently destroy people's ability to create a prosperous society if they are given free rein without any bit of regulation. So, carried by a wave of shouting supporters and wielding a chainsaw at the open sky, the man of the hour approached center stage. He looked around and angrily screamed, "Chainsaw, chainsaw." A war cry quickly picked up amongst his supporters, calling for carnage. All around him, shouts, chants, and traffic horns blasting loud. If you can pay attention to how they're structuring this, they're immediately making this off to make it seem like he is nothing more than a caricature, which one thing that Trump did was be a caricature, and people loved it. So if anything, if Javier Milei is doing this intentionally, he has done something incredibly fascinating, which is realize that what he has to do is make people pay attention to him because he has to be so loud and so bombastic that you can't do anything but pay attention to him. It says this was not a WWE wrestling show, but the 2023 presidential race in Argentina, where political outsider Javier Milei is the leading candidate. His repeated appearances wielding a chainsaw at campaign stops, as he did as the rally described above in the seaside city of Mar del Plata on September 12th, symbolizes promises to drastically cut government expenses, eliminate public subsidies, and break up the status quo. Milei, an economist and former political commentator, surprised Argentina's political scene in August when he won the large share of the coalition primary vote that most observers consider indicative of the upcoming presidential contest set for October 22nd. 2 days from the moment of this recording, I cannot wait to see the nature of what comes out with this. I am so on edge to see what happens. I would really be curious to see if the CIA is going to be stepping into the fray. But with Javier Milei wanting to attach Argentina to that of the dollar, I really believe that it may actually give him a little bit of leeway when it comes to the fact of, while he is detaching himself from the central bank, he is also attaching himself to a centralized monetary fund backed by the United States, because he wants to have money that actually has value so that they can truly establish Argentina, because as he's claimed multiple times, within 35 years his goal is to see the people of Argentina turn Argentina into a world power. Argentine politics have largely been dominated by the same groups of the past 20 years, and Milei represents a new outside force that is aggressively targeting traditional power workers and power brokers on both sides of the aisle. It's a familiar tale that draws comparisons of the rise of the far-right stars like former U.S. President Donald Trump and former Brazilian President Bolsonaro. So, the fact that they are calling Donald Trump far-right just really shows CNN's bias, when realistically Donald Trump was nothing more than a New York Democrat all the way up until the Barack Obama era, when he actually started voting conservative. And even then, the only reason he started voting conservative was because of how the Overton window had shifted. Donald Trump to this day is not really a conservative. He's still a 90s Democrat. But 90s Democrats are aligned so perfectly with today's conservative because conservatisms don't actually stop the speed bumps that progressivism is actually going over. What they really do is consistently push the rhetoric that progressives are doing. They just sit there and do so 20 years later. Moving on, let's go ahead and jump in. And what we see is, from Fortune, the frontrunner in Argentina's presidential election is a chainsaw-wielding anarcho-capitalist who wants to shift to the US dollar. And this is exactly what I was talking about with the fact of the CAA not giving him an award, which is by that of a bullet. So the thing that I really want to talk about is the chainsaw, because the reason this is the thing that he is seen using is because he's talking about cutting through the bureaucracy, and with it, I love this symbolism. Now we go into Axios, far-right candidate leads polls ahead of Argentina's presidential election. Doesn't matter if you're right-wing, doesn't matter if you're left-wing, as long as you're someone that's outside of the establishment perspective, they will call you far-left, they will call you far-right, they will do anything to demonize you as long as you are someone who is establishing an ethos that is challenging theirs. So, now on to Reuters, Argentina election 2023, what you need to know. So what do we see? Argentina will hold a presidential election on October 22nd with a fiery libertarian economist, an economy minister, and a center-right former security minister vying in a tight race to reach the presidential palace. One of them will place President Alberto Fernandez, who is not seeking re-election. The election comes as Argentinian voters are hard hit by 124% yearly inflation that has pummeled their purchasing power. 2 in 5 Argentinians live in poverty. When and where is the election? Voting centers on October 22nd. The election opens at 8 a.m. local time, closes at 6 p.m. Wow, isn't that fascinating? Everyone actually has to go and vote on a singular day, and with that, if you don't vote, your vote isn't counted. They aren't going to be sitting there doing this bullshit that the United States did when we were counting our votes and doing electronic mandatory voting, because we had to make sure and avoid the crisis that was COVID. Well, what happened was we completely upended all of our norms when it came to elections, and then whether or not the 2020 election was actually sound, it doesn't matter solely for this reason. There's a large portion of people that even if it was trustworthy, they will never trust it because of how you restructured so many of the rules surrounding it. If you would like to know the quote-unquote history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election, go ahead and look up that exact title, verbatim, word for word, and you'll get a magazine article from Time. And with it, you will see something quite fascinating as they talk about how, well, they didn't cheat. What they did was they fortified the election. And I genuinely wonder if they will be fortifying the election against Javier Milei, which it already seems they are doing by bolstering these claims against him when they are trying to sue him by saying he's trying to destroy the economy of Argentina by devaluing the dollar, by telling people to detach themselves from it. And with this, we see it's really nothing more than that of a banana republic if they're going into this territory, and that is where the Gateway Pundit understands this. Banana Republic, Argentinian presidential frontrunner Javier Milei placed under criminal investigation days before election over speech, just like they do Trump. And here's the thing, as we've already stated, inflation has completely galvanized the country, and with it, the people have realized the threat of government being the people who will completely destroy your economy solely as long as they themselves, the people in power, can consistently benefit, because the ethos that seems to be coming from the people in power nowadays isn't about making sure that we can solve the problems in the world so that we can all live better lives. It seems to be that what they plan on doing is getting so rich that the problems that are plaguing everyone else doesn't affect them. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Everything I use will be linked in the description down below. Go ahead and give this a follow if you enjoy this kind of content, and subscribe. Thumbs up if you like this, thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. God bless the people of Argentina, because they will be the people, if this goes through, who will lead the front-running charge in creating and activating revolutionary spirit within the people of America and people across the world, because they will be the ones waving the flag saying liberty is the way. I'm going to leave it there. Thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Stay lovely, stay great. God bless Argentina. Peace out.